Good afternoon and welcome to Bloomerang Academy. Thank you so much for joining us today. And today we are talking about a quick start guide to year-end donation forms in Qgiv. I know we have a lot to cover today, so Abby, I'll let you take it away.
Perfect. Let me show you guys my screen. Here we go. I am thrilled to talk to you all today about year-end fundraising because I know it's such a big deal for everybody. Before we dive too into it, here is who I am and why I'm talking to you. My name is Abby Jarvis. I've been part of the Qgiv team for a little over 8 years, and I have become, in that 8-year time period, very passionate about understanding how donors think, what donors want from the organizations they support, and then how you can use donor behaviors to put together really effective fundraising strategies. So that is why I'm super excited to talk to you guys today. I'm also a gardener and a fairy tale writer and a beekeeper and a few other things. So among all of those little side hobbies, I also do serve on the board for a local nonprofit. And so a lot of the best practices I'm going to share with you today are best practices that I'm actually actively using with other nonprofits. So I would love to hear y'all's thoughts as we kind of go through this, share what has worked for you. If something different has worked for you, I'd love to hear about it. But before we kind of look at how Qgiv can help with year-end fundraising, I wanted to ask you guys just a couple of questions. So if you could drop your answers in the chat, I would love to see where you guys are. How ready do you feel for the year-end fundraising period right now? Drop that in the chat and let me know. The reason I ask is because for a ton of nonprofits, December is far and away the biggest fundraising month of the year. And some nonprofits have even processed up to 50% of their operations or their budget in December. That's especially important in the last 3 days of the year. So I've read that as much as 12% of all charitable giving happens in the last 3 days of the year, which is wild. So some of you are ready, some of you are not at all ready. That's perfectly fine. Everybody's at kind of a different level. Very happy to help you guys kind of target things in. Next question, type just yes or no in the chat. Are you actively using Qgiv, or are you just kind of getting a feel for general best practices? That will help me tailor what I talk to you today a little bit. No, yes, no. Okay, good mix, good mix. Okay, all right. Well, before we really get into the specifics of form design, I kind of want to lay out a few different statistics that will help you kind of grasp why this is such an important topic. You all know how important your appeals are, your campaigns are, and a lot of times because you put so much time and thought and energy into actually building your campaign and building your appeals, the actual donation form can get kind of lost in the shuffle. But we know from a recent study that we did that over 54% of our donors prefer to go online to make a gift. So the online experience is going to be a big deal for a lot of folks. And then I found this statistic from Next After that only about 4% of people who land on your donation form will actually go on to make a gift. So having a good donation form kind of achieves two different things. One, it accommodates your donors that want to go online and donate to you that way. But also, if you can give people a great experience and if you can put together a compelling donation form, you may be able to actually boost the number of people that land on your donation form, even if they had not already committed in their heads to giving you in the first place. So there are 3 different things that good design elements on your donation form will achieve. The first one is it builds trust between you and your donor. A good donation form will show your donors that you are a trustworthy organization, that they're giving to a well-established nonprofit, and that their financial information is safe. It will reduce anxiety. And when I say anxiety, I don't necessarily mean like the sweaty hands, kind of butterflies in your stomach anxiety. When I'm talking about anxiety on donation forms, I mean any kind of hesitance that your donors may experience before they give you their financial information. So if they don't know how you're going to use their financial information, if they are worried that their financial information may not be safe, even if you're asking some questions of your donors and they don't know why you want that information, that can be a source of anxiety. And then Good design will also remove friction. And that is kind of a design-y term that really just describes any situation or circumstance where your donor may get stuck. If they have to think too hard about the answer to a question, if there are too many restrictions that they can choose from if they want to direct their gift to a certain program. Anything that makes your donor stop and think, and anything that kind of takes them out of the emotional experience of giving to a cause they really care about is friction. So we want to look at ways to reduce that friction. So we're going to look at how to kind of achieve each of those 3 goals with your donation form. And this is exactly what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the best practices for actually building donation forms. I'm going to show you some strategies that you can use to kind of streamline the data you collect from your nonprofits, from your donors, and then kind of getting them into your nonprofit's data sets. We're going to look at specifically how you can use Qgiv's tools to achieve these things. And then we're going to look at a lot of different examples that kind of show you what these best practices look like in real life. So here is my first tip for you. You can create lots of different forms. You can do this on Qgiv. There's not an extra charge for having these additional forms, and there are some different kind of goals that you can achieve by creating multiple forms if it suits your campaign. So you may want to consider creating multiple forms if you have different donor segments that you're reaching out to very specifically. So if you are sending an appeal to maybe lapsed donors, if you're sending out an appeal to existing recurring donors, if you're sending out an appeal to mid-level donors, so donors that kind of, mid-level is different for every organization, but if they're giving maybe $500 to $2,000 per gift instead of your lower level, and I say that with all the possible air quotes, your lower level donors who are maybe giving $20 to $50, you can create different forms that are tailored specifically to each of those donor segments. So if you're sending an appeal to someone who gave you $30 last year, you can show them a form that has different donation amounts, suggested donation amounts, than you would your donor that gave you $3,000 last year. She can get a different donation form with higher suggested donation amounts. Lots of different room for kind of customization and personalization there. This is also really helpful if you are fundraising using multiple different channels. So what that means is if you are, say, putting together a Giving Tuesday campaign and you are doing an email blast and you're also doing a social media campaign, you may be able or want to create a specific donation form for your email appeal and then a different form for your social media appeal. That can be very helpful, especially if you are tracking how different channels perform during your fundraising campaign. There are certainly ways to track channel performance that doesn't require building separate donation forms, but it's a tool that you have access to and can be very helpful based on the type of campaign you're running. There is also a really neat tool in Qgiv that lets you look at forms side by side. So if you wanted to see, okay, I sent out an appeal through email, I made social media appeals, and I sent out a direct mail appeal that included a link to my donation form. You could have separate donation forms for each of those. You can compare them to each other. And then next year, when you send out your 3-prong appeal, you can compare those forms to this year's forms. So lots of opportunities to kind of get granular with the data that you're looking at and the form performance that you are evaluating at the end of your campaign. So how does this work? Well, the first thing is you'll choose a form to clone. So if you are set up with Qgiv, you already have at least one form, you can clone that form. It is pretty straightforward. You choose the attributes that you want to copy. Make sure you give your form a unique name. So if Kristen was running an event and they built 3 different forms for 3 different fundraising channels, it would be important for them to name one, maybe Facebook appeal, email appeal, and whatever other appeal you're choosing. So give your form specific names. It'll be much easier for you to track your success in the future. And then make any necessary updates or edits. And I wanted to call this out. I see that some of you are using Qgiv. If you need it, there are step-by-step instructions for each of these processes in our help desk. You can pull it up and do it that way, or you can also give us a call and we'll walk you through how to do this all and give you some training. So don't worry if you don't get every detail during this presentation, there are other options for you. All right. Cool. So this is what the actual process looks like. So you actually come in and build a new form. You choose the different attributes and carry it all over. So I wanted to point out over here that some of the attributes that you can carry over include things like dedications. If you have events built, you can do it. You can carry those over. You can also turn all of these off. So if you want to start from the absolute bare basics, that's totally an option for you as well. All right. How many of you, type a yes or a no in the chat, how many of you know that your donation form works really well on a mobile device? I'm just curious. The reason I ask is because I know that a lot of people are very tired of hearing me talk about the significance of having a mobile-friendly donation form, but there's a reason for it. So we know that more than half of all internet traffic now comes from mobile devices. So more than half of your donors are visiting your donation form on a mobile device. We also know that Google really, really loves mobile-friendly donation forms. We know that nonprofits, we saw this in a study from Next After, nonprofits can actually increase donations by as much as 126% on average, just by making their donation form and their overall site more mobile-friendly. Mobile donations are on the rise. Between 2017 and 2018, they increased more than 200%, and that trend has just continued. So donors are actively using your donation form on their mobile devices. So seeing that increase in traffic, so because Google prioritizes those mobile-friendly pages, more traffic to your site hopefully translates to more traffic to your donation form, which hopefully means more donations for you. So if you do not already have your donation form set up to be mobile friendly, now's the time to kind of start checking that out. Where do you start? So if you're using a Qgiv form, your form is already optimized for mobile, especially if you are using our donation forms that we redesigned and released earlier this year. Those were designed with mobile kind of at the forefront of our brains because more than half of all donors are visiting from their phones. So if you're already using Qgiv, you don't have to worry about it. This is already handled for you. Now, I will say this, regardless of whether or not your form is mobile optimized, it is important if you have images on your donation form to make sure those large images are compressed. And that accomplishes something very important. What that does is it improves load times. If you have ever been browsing the internet, gone to click onto a page, it takes forever to load and you just get frustrated and click away, you know the significance that load times can have on a user's experience. So if your donor goes to click over to your donation form, they're so excited about giving to you, but it takes 5 to 10 seconds for your page to load, the odds of them losing interest are very high. I saw somewhere that the average person will wait 2 to 3 seconds for a page to load and then they'll leave. So here's my tip. There is a website, it's called Compressed JPEG. They also have a version for pings. And all you do is you upload your picture, you tell it to compress it, you download it, and then you use that picture. I do it all the time. It's very easy. So just look and see if you have any large files on your donation form. If you do, compress them and then use that compressed version instead. You want to take it to the next level, I have some suggestions for you. So type yes or no if you are using different restrictions on your donation form so people can direct their gift. The reason I ask for this is because if you have a lot of different restrictions, that may become kind of clunky on a mobile phone. So, okay, it looks like one of you has a lot of restrictions, or a couple of you. So what you can do is you can enable or disable different restriction options on your donation form. So if Lance is a perfect example. Lance has what looks like multiple forms. And depending on the form, they may have multiple restrictions. You can enable or disable different restrictions on different forms, and you can dial that in even further based on the device. So if Lance has a donation form that has 8 different restrictions, it's a little awkward on mobile. They can turn off restrictions on the control panel. So if you want to kind of keep your form simple, you can turn those off on your control panel and they won't appear on the mobile forms. You can also customize different form fields for desktop, mobile, and text-based donations. So if you want to collect information about your donors, you can turn it on the desktop form and then turn it off on mobile so the mobile form stays shorter. You can also choose different options that are available to mobile donors. So you can turn on or off dedications. You can turn on or off different fields that you may not necessarily need, but might want to collect. Lots of different options there. I don't know why this is happening, but here's an example of a form field that you can turn on and off in the control panel. So in this instance, I want to collect the employer information for my donors, but I know that that's another form field on a mobile form. I felt it was kind of awkward. So in this instance, I'm only going to display it on my desktop form and not on my mobile form. So that's an option for you if you're looking to kind of build a better mobile experience for your donors. This is another example of the different options you can make available to your donors. In this case, I want to turn on dedications. I want to allow people to dedicate their gift to a family member or a loved one. And in this case, I can display it only on desktop if I want. I can display it across all of the different form options, or I may want to turn it on only for text to donate donors. Lots of different versatility here and a lot of different ways for you to customize your donor's experience based on the device they're using to access your form. My next design tip, someone asked, what is a text-based donor? So a text-based donor, if you are using Qgiv and have turned on text to donate, what that does is it lets your donors initiate the giving process by sending in a text keyword. So, text message. So Zach, if someone wanted to make a donation to you, they texted your keyword to the short code, they landed on your donation form. A lot of times text donors are in a hurry. It's a very emotional kind of gut reaction to give. And a lot of times you want to keep those forms exceptionally short. So you may want to enable or disable different options for those text donors. Regardless of how your donors are giving to you, it is important that you have some storytelling elements on your form. And this is really a powerful way to engage those people who land on your donation form, but maybe haven't necessarily decided to give. So here are some tips for you. The first tip is to help people commit by showing them a really great high quality photo of the kind of person they're going to be helping when they give to you. Donors like to know 2 things. They like to know that their gift is going to make a tangible difference, and they like to know who that gift is going to impact. So in this instance, Feeding America here chose a great picture of this smiling little girl. So donors now visualize in their heads when they're making a gift that they're giving to this little girl. The next thing you can do, especially if you have kind of put together this campaign and told a beautiful story to your donors about the kind of impact their gift will make, you can add a short impact statement to the different suggested donation amounts on your form. That makes it very easy for donors to envision the impact their gift is going to make, and that is very compelling. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is, regardless of the fundraising campaign you're putting together, regardless of the storytelling you're putting together, it is always more important to have high quality impact statements and form copy and images than it is to have a lot of it. I have seen donation forms perform beautifully with lots and lots of explainer text. I've also seen donation forms perform really well with little to no explainer text. So don't feel like you have to keep your text very short. Don't feel like you have to add lots of different details to your donation form. Just make sure anything you add to your donation form, whether it's images or impact statements or something else, make sure that everything you add to your donation form is helping your donor make the decision to give and moving them through that process. So why is this so important? The first is that humans are very visual creatures. If we see an image of a person, especially if that person or person-like thing, I know a lot of like animal shelters can get creative with puppy pictures or whatever. We like seeing that eye contact. It helps us connect with the person in the picture. It makes us feel like we are giving to them and not just kind of a faceless organization. This is also really helpful because, like I kind of alluded to, donors like to know that we are making a tangible difference when we give to a nonprofit. We also like to know not only that we're making a tangible difference, but that the people who are going to be impacted by that tangible difference are someone that we could talk to. We like to know who we're giving to. And we are more compelled to give to other individuals than we are to give to organizations. So anything you can do to put an individual human or human-like face to the person your donors are going to support is going to be beneficial. So here I wanted to kind of show you a little bit of the tool that you would be using to put together these forms. We have our form builder. This is kind of the base. When you build a landing page, this is what it looks like. So this is the interface you'll use if you want to upload an image. You can just click on the little gear here, upload an image. You can add all kinds of different things. You can add buttons, you can add videos, you can add links to your Facebook page. Now I'm going to say this. There's the option to add a video here. I would encourage you not to. It works really well for some organizations, but Next After did a study, I think in 2019, and they showed that adding a video to a donation form instead of something more simple like a picture actually hurt conversion rates immensely. Conversion rates were more than 500% lower. So if you do use a video, be very intentional about how you use it. Otherwise, stick with a picture. I also wanted to point out, kind of zoom in here a little bit, that all of the different aspects of the giving process are also customizable. So you could go in here and you could change what this says. And you could say something different instead of choose your gift. You can change the wording on your donation form. So there is a ton of opportunity to really build a donation form that enhances and contributes to the story you've told your donors in your Giving Tuesday campaign, in your year-end giving campaign. Lots of different ways to do that here. Now I want to expand a little bit on donation amounts because I've kind of alluded to them, but donation amounts are a very powerful way not only to include those storytelling elements we discussed in the last section, but also to kind of reiterate to donors the impact they're going to make and then scratch that online shopping itch. And I'll get into that in a second. So I would encourage you to do this. Those of you who are here for best practices, this is for you. Offer a variety of different donation amounts on your donation form. When a donor lands on your page, if they want to give you $20, but the lowest donation amount that's suggested is $100, they're going to feel a little out of it. Regardless of the range of options you provide, try describing the impact each donation will make or can achieve. Donors like to be able to visualize what their gift is going to help. And then experiment with this. This maybe is something that you could start experimenting with now, so you can kind of hone it in as you get closer to the end of year. But get creative. Try out different donation amounts. Try out different descriptions. Try adding images or not adding images. So get a feel for what your donors like, and then apply what you learn to your campaign when it's ready to launch in the next few weeks. So why is this important? We know that donors will often donate more when they land on a form with suggested donation amounts. So if Heather lands on my donation form, they intend to make a $20 gift, but my lowest suggested donation amount is $25. They may choose to just give $25. That doesn't always help. Sometimes people really just do want to give $20, and that's more than fine. But very often donors will bump their gift up a little bit. This is a great way also to help donors understand their gift's impact. And that's important, one, because it means that finishing the donation process will be more compelling to them, but it is also a great opportunity to kind of start cultivating those donors now. So when donors have an understanding of their impact when they give, Your impact report that you are hopefully sending a few weeks after they give will be even more special to them. This also, kind of as we alluded to in the last section, it keeps your donors connected to your story throughout the donation process. So if Jennifer has been telling me a beautiful story about this man that I'm helping feed when I donate to their campaign, and I see that man on the donation form and the suggested donation amounts tell me how much I'm going to help contribute, my gift means a lot more to me. Now, this is a fun kind of little psychological hack. We all like shopping online. I don't know about you. I have bought some embarrassing and very unnecessary items during this whole pandemic. And especially at the end of the year when we're all kind of in shopping mode, we really like the kind of immediate gratification of online shopping. And helping your donors very specifically envision what they are buying with their donation scratches that itch. So it's a great donor experience. It helps donors understand what their gift is going to accomplish, who it's going to help, and then it kind of gives them that little dopamine rush of knowing that they bought something really cool. So where do you start? All right. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, and then I want to reiterate it. Create a reasonable range of suggested donation sizes. Here, I've chosen to start at $25. I've gone up to $500. If you are creating multiple different donation forms, you may choose to have, say, this donation range for your one-time donors, your smaller donors. If you have a donation form specifically for mid-tier donors, you may want to start at $500 and then go up from there. Lots of different ways to approach this, but it is important that you create a reasonable range for the group of donors that you are sending this form to. Add descriptions, especially if you can relate those descriptions to the story you've already been telling your donors during your appeal. And then if you would like to, and if it fits your branding, associate each dollar amount with an image to reiterate that donor's impact. And then, as I kind of alluded to a minute ago, do consider creating different donation amounts in different forms for different donor segments. So you can have the one-time donors, you can have the major donors. If you are sending a donation form to lapsed donors, maybe you want to include different donation amount descriptions to kind of help them realize the benefits of supporting your organization again after they've lapsed. You really want to take it to the next level. Use your donors' average gift sizes as a basis for the suggested donation amount range you're going to include. If you're using Qgiv, you can very easily pull from your control panel the average donation sizes and the most popular kind of donation amounts you've included on your forms before. Use that as a starting point. And then if you go in and make sure you include specific words and phrases that you've already used in your campaign story and include them in the suggested donation amounts, you create a really beautiful sense of continuity for your donors. So here in this picture, this nonprofit used the phrases abandoned infants, and then they talk about nutrition and medical care, and they mimicked that language here. So I, as a donor, read an appeal asking for help, providing food and medical care to these infants. So when I land on their donation form and the phrasing is the same, it creates a sense of continuity to me, and I'm much more confident in making my gift. Now, I wanted to ask, how many of you are using recurring gifts on your donation forms? This is a simple step, but it is something that can often be overlooked, especially if you are cloning a donation form that doesn't have them turned on. Oh, good. I'm so glad that you all are using recurring donation forms. I won't spend a ton of time on this then. Okay, so we want donors to at least have the option to make a recurring gift, even if they are only on your donation form to make a one-time gift this time. When they see recurring options, they have in the back of their head, at least the next time they come and land on your donation form, they know that that's an option. So this is especially helpful if you are sending an appeal specifically for recurring gifts. So however you choose to display this, try to include a short, clear appeal for recurring gifts. And then this is important. I would really encourage you to offer a variety of billing frequencies. Your donor that gets paid once a week may want to give once a week. They may want to give once a month. They may want to give once a quarter. So offer a variety, kind of get a feel for what your donors are looking for and include those options. Now, this is important, and I'm not going to yell because I feel like I would startle you, but please, please, please do not default to recurring gifts. This is a huge kind of red flag for some donors. If you automatically have the recurring donation form checked or already have that kind of pre-populated, donors will often feel like you are trying to trick them into making a recurring gift. And even if they wanted to give a one-time gift, even if they wanted to give a recurring gift, nobody wants to feel like they're being tricked into making an ongoing donation. So don't default to this. The only exception is if you are sending out an appeal specifically for monthly gifts, then it's okay to have monthly gift kind of turned on, and that's the default. Otherwise, for your general appeals, for your general social media posts, don't default to recurring gifts because you can come off as sneaky, and we don't want that. All right, so why is recurring so important? The first one is we know recurring donors have way higher retention rates. We also know that they give more per year than their one-time donors. So if Paula is a recurring donor and Krista is a one-time donor, Paula, as a general rule, will give a little over 40% more over the course of the year. This is a phenomenal engagement tool if you're looking to kind of increase that donor retention rate, but it is also a great engagement tool if you are trying to attract younger donors, so millennials and Generation Z. 52% of millennials, we've learned this in our generational giving study, 52% of millennial donors would rather give you a recurring gift over the course of a year or two than one large gift all at once. So turn those on. Where do you start? All right, in Qgiv, all you need to do is enable recurring donations on your forms. It's a simple toggle. You just turn it on and off, hopefully on, not off. And then you can create different recurring donation suggested gift amounts. So if you have your one-time donation form set up, you may want to start your suggested gift amounts at $30 and go up. For monthly donors or recurring donors, you may want to start at $10 a month. So create those suggested giving amounts for recurring gifts. And then if you are running an entire campaign specifically around recurring donations, I would encourage you to just try to set up an additional form. It can be almost identical to your primary form and use that form for your appeal if that appeal is specifically for recurring gifts. And then you can enable the default recurring option that way. All right, I think this is the last tip. I would encourage you here to streamline your donation form, and I'm going to go into what that means. But people are very intimidated by long forms. So the more you can do to make yours short, the better performance you will have on that form. So if you have a very long form, donors are going to be much more likely to leave without making you gift. And so what you can do to prevent that from happening is to keep all of the required fields that you need to a minimum and then remove any non-essential fields. If you have a field on your donation form that is not necessary for you processing that donor's gift, it can be removed and probably should be. If you have a CAPTCHA on your donation form, unless that CAPTCHA is absolutely necessary, unless you have had a history of someone like actively trying to spam that form, turn off CAPTCHAs. If you have to have it, the best CAPTCHA to have on your form is the little click here, I'm not a robot, and you've all done it. You click there and it writes the check, and you can move from there. The goal, if you have to have a CAPTCHA, is to keep it as painless as possible. If you have ever gone through 4 rounds of clicking on any tile that has a stop sign in it or something, you know how frustrating those can be. So keep your CAPTCHA to the simplest possible format if you absolutely must have it. Now, I know a lot of donors or a lot of nonprofits are tempted to ask their donors for additional information, maybe how they found out about you, are they looking for volunteer opportunities? If you need to ask questions like that, try asking donors to fill out a survey for you that you have linked on the confirmation page of your donation form instead of asking those questions on the form itself. So if Karen has set up her form, I go through, I make my gift. It's very short. There aren't any unnecessary questions. I get to the confirmation page and Karen has added a note that said, thank you so much for your donation. Tell us a little bit about yourself by filling out this simple survey. It's a great way to get the donor demographic information that you're looking for without ruining your conversion rates. Now, I wanted to point this out here. Fun fact, requiring a phone number cuts conversion rates in half. Something as simple as making a phone number optional for your donor can have a dramatic impact on your donation form. So if you ask for your donors' phone numbers, either delete it if you don't actually need that information, or if you are collecting that information, don't make it required, just make it an option. All right, so why is this important? Because donors are turned off by long forms, and I wish I could yell this, but I won't. They will not complete them. It's frustrating. We feel like our missions are so important. Everyone should be thrilled about donating, but donors are very turned off by long donation forms. Any extra fields that you have on your form can ruin conversion rates. So if you have any extraneous fields that are not necessary to processing the gift, try removing them. And then this is another tip, and I'm going to show you how to get around this. Seeing a form that looks long, even if it's not, is enough to turn off a donor. So I wanted to point out on this form how the first name and last name fields are next to each other, email and phone are next to each other. These payment information fields are all next to each other. These are all next to each other. My conversion rates on this form will be much higher than if each of those fields had its own line item. So even if a form has the same number of fields but looks longer, people won't fill it out. So what you can do is something called chunking. It is not the most glamorous name. It's very straightforward. Chunking is the act of dividing a long process into shorter, more manageable chunks. So if I had a long form, but I split it into several smaller chunks, I've turned that long form into shorter pieces. And even though you're asking for the same amount of information, it feels like it's an easier process. So anything you can do to kind of set your donation form into chunks. Ask for the gift amount, then move them on to the area where they share personal information, then move them into the area where they post their billing information. It's the same number of fields, but it feels more manageable, feels less complicated. And sometimes that is more important than something actually being less complicated. Human brains are amazing. So where do you start? In Qgiv, when you're setting up your donation form, you'll have two options. You can have a single step form, or you can have a multi-step form. The multi-step form here is the option that you're looking for. It divides each of the kind of phases of the donation process into its own little chunk. So donors don't see the whole form all at once. They see individual manageable little chunks. If you love having all of your forms in one place, by all means use the single step option, but I would encourage you to at least try the multi-step. It's really cool. And then this is the next step that a lot of us overlook. Go through your donation form yourself. Pretend that you're not working for your organization, pretend you're a donor, go through the donation process and identify any areas where you get stuck, any areas where you feel a form is kind of redundant, and then see if you can eliminate those entirely. If you don't want to do it, you can get an even more accurate view of your donor's experience by asking maybe your spouse or your kid or your friend to go through the donation process and tell you what they think. So I would encourage you to try that. All right, last one for real. I would encourage you to remove any distractions from your form. We know that 96% of people who land on a donation form don't actually make a gift. There are probably lots of different reasons for that, but one of them is probably that we get distracted on donation forms. So what does that look like? Remove distractions from your donation form, and that means remove navigation links. Don't include different competing calls to action. So if you are building your donation form and you have opportunities to donate, and then there's a link where they can look to see volunteer opportunities, and then there's a link to see if they want to read a blog article about the campaign you're fundraising for, remove all of those additional links, all those additional calls to action. Help your donors stay focused on the task at hand, which is making a gift. And then this is another thing. So at the top of your page, you've got maybe some copy around the cause that people are donating to. You've got some pictures. You've got your Your impact statements, maybe those are reiterated with pictures, but by the time a donor fills in their personal information and their billing information, they haven't really looked at any kind of storytelling element in a little bit. So you can kind of get them back focused by reaffirming the impact they're going to make next to the submission button. That's what this group here did. You'll notice the top up here, and this is where all their navigation items were, but when you land on the form, those items are gone. You get down to the form, and then they've reiterated their call to action down here by the donate button. It's very powerful. So why is this? We have spectacularly short attention spans. I know I do it all the time. If you have ever been Googling a recipe or something, and then suddenly you're an hour deep into a Wikipedia wormhole about some obscure historical event, you know we have short attention spans. It is terrible, especially when we're on the internet. We also have this thing called decision fatigue. Type yes in the chat if this has ever happened to you, because it just did to me. I went to the grocery store yesterday. My husband needed granola. There were like 30 different kinds of granola, and I stood and I stared at the granola section of the cereal aisle for an irritating amount of time. That's why Trader Joe's is great. They're wonderful. So when you have a link to donate, when you have a call to action to volunteer, when you have navigation items, when you've got pictures, when you've got all these different elements going on, it's very easy for people to get overwhelmed. There are too many things for us to look at. There are too many choices for us to make. And a lot of times we'll just leave, or we'll end up on Wikipedia reading about the War of 1812. So anything you can do to remove those distractions and to remove those decisions from your donor's line of sight is going to help you. It is also very easy for us to disconnect from the narrative you've told us when we are distracted or when there's a lot going on. So if Jack has told me this beautiful story about this neighbor of mine who needs some help, and then I land on this form and I see the neighbor that I can help, I see how I can help him out, but there's this really shiny button over there asking me to read a blog article about my potential impact. And then the next thing I know, I'm on the blog page, I'm not on the donation form anymore. I'm disconnected from that story. So remove those distractions, keep your donors focused and connected to the story, and your conversion rates will improve. So where do you start? All right, now I'm gonna throw this out here. There are two different options for you if you're using Qgiv. One is a widget. What those are is a widget is a little snippet of code that drops your donation form onto a page on your website. So if Kristen has a donate page and they decide to drop the widget on there, perfect, it's set up right there. The other option you have is a landing page, where if you don't have a dedicated page on your website for your donation form, you can build one in the Qgiv system itself. All right, so those are the two differences. All right, if you're building a widget, if you've already got your donation page, so it could be Trader Joe's is great, traderjoe'sisgreat.com/donate. You can drop your donation form there. Make sure that page doesn't have the navigation items on there. Make sure you take out the footer links. Make sure you take out any kind of competing calls to action. If you're building your landing page yourself, it's a little easier. You don't have to add all of those elements in there. If you are not using a landing page, if you are using a landing page, even if you're not, be sure not to add any competing calls to action. The only thing your donor should be asked to do on this page is donate. So if there's anything, if you want them to do anything else, watch a video, read an article, fill out a survey, by all means, add those elements to your confirmation page that your donor sees after they've submitted their gift. But while they are working on submitting their gift, keep them focused on donating and don't give them any other options. All right, lots to take in. So I want to do a quick wrap up. So there are 3 ways to improve conversion rates on your donation form. So remember, if you're like the average nonprofit, only 4% of people who land on your donation form are actually going to make a gift. If you can bump that up to 5%, that's a huge win for you. So we want to do that by showing donors that they can trust us. We want to help them not worry about what's actually going to happen with their information. We want them to feel like they trust us. We want to remove any anxiety they have. And then we want to avoid adding any friction into the mix. So we don't want them to have to think about why are you asking for my phone number? Are you going to call me? We don't want them to worry about what their gift is actually going to achieve. We want to show them through our suggested gift amounts what their gift will accomplish. So we want to do all of this. And some ways that you can do that are by one, having a mobile friendly donation form, especially if you are running maybe a Giving Tuesday campaign, if you have a large social media component to your fundraising campaign. We know that donors by and large are on their phones or at the very least on a tablet. More than half of your donation forms traffic is coming from people on their mobile devices. So make it mobile friendly. Include storytelling elements on your form. This achieves a couple of things. For people who have landed on your donation form and have already decided that they're going to give a gift, this reiterates the fact that they're going to make a difference when they give. It also lets them know that they're in the right place. If you've ever responded to an appeal and you land on a donation form with totally different branding or imagery or language or whatever, you may wonder if you're in the right place. So including storytelling elements on your form shows donors that you're trustworthy, shows them you're in the right place, and keeps them connected to the story that inspired them to want to donate in the first place. When they're there, it is important that they see an array of different suggested donation amounts. Be thoughtful and intentional about the donation amounts you show. And then regardless of the range that you choose, do make sure there is the other option enabled. If I land on a form, I am intending to give $25, suggested gift amount starts at 30, I could go up to 30, but it would kind of hurt my feelings if I wanted to give you $25 and that just wasn't an option. So at least include that other option. Do try adding recurring options to your donation form. This is important, one, because you can't process the recurring donations if it's not enabled, but even if someone lands on your form and they have no intention of making a recurring gift right now, you've at least planted in their head the seed. So the next time they donate to you, they may consider making that recurring gift. But of course, and I want to yell again, but I won't, don't make recurring the default. The only time that's okay is if you are sending out an appeal specifically for recurring donors. Otherwise, give them the option, but don't make that the default option. Do everything you can to remove distractions from your donation form. That includes navigation links, it includes footer links, it includes competing calls to action. The task here is to facilitate donors giving. So we want to keep them focused on the task at hand. We want to remove any temptation that may send them spiraling into some internet wormhole. We really just want them to stay focused until they make their gift. And then if you can, and if you need to, try creating different forms for different segments or campaigns. If you're reaching out to 3 or 4 different segments of donors, you may want to come up with customized donation forms for them. You may also want to create specific donation forms for different channels that you're using. Or you may want to create, if you're running a Giving Tuesday campaign and a standalone year-end campaign, you may want to keep those two separate for bookkeeping purposes and for tracking purposes. So throwing a ton of information at you. What questions do we have? Any questions?
We had several, Abby, that I've already answered through the Q&A.
Okay.
The audience did a fantastic job of asking some very, very great detailed questions. So I'm thrilled that we were able to hopefully answer all those. And if not, please let us know. I think that there's one question that seems to be kind of common. It has just really kind of has to do at a very high level regarding the integration that we have with Bloomerang. And just please know that it is a seamless integration, meaning that the data is automatically transferred over from the Qgiv fundraising platform over to the Bloomerang donor management system. So it's basically a matter of setting up credentials the very first time, which of course our customer experience team will help you set up all of those. And then once you set it up the very first time, then from that point forward, everything is taken care of for you automatically.
Perfect. Yeah. I'm really glad that Jack was here to point that out, because He always does such a good job of explaining that integration. I did see one question in the Q&A that I wanted to call out because I feel like it may be something that's on multiple people's minds. Karen asked, are restriction options set for the whole platform, or can you make them different for different campaigns? And you can do that. You can create different restrictions for different campaigns. So if you're setting up a Giving Tuesday campaign and you have created your Giving Tuesday campaign to raise money for a particular program, you may not want to include any restrictions at all in your Giving Tuesday form. But if you have your year-end form, you can add as many restrictions as you want to for that one. So each form can have its own restrictions. So I know that comes up a lot. I saw Jack answered it, but I don't know how Q&A works in Zoom, so I couldn't tell if everybody can see that answer or just the person that asked the question. So. And then I'll reiterate this because I've seen a couple questions. If you are a Qgiv user and you have questions about how to do any of this, there are a couple of options. One, we have a help desk. It's got lots of videos and it's got step-by-step instructions complete with screenshots, so you know exactly what button to click to do anything. And then you can also give us a call. You'll always talk to a real person. You won't have to dial through a phone system or anything wacky like that. And we can show you how to do things. We can train you. We can train your volunteers. Support is always free to use, and you'll get to know us, and we'll get to see and follow your fundraising progress throughout the end of the year. So let us know if we can help.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Abby. That was a lot of great information as always, even though like, oh, we have a question come in.
Oh, good.
Will the appeal you are fundraising for populate in Bloomerang, or will I have to switch that after it goes into Bloomerang? When you go into your integration settings in Qgiv, you will have the option for what fields you are mapping to. So make sure to set that up in Qgiv so that it flows into Bloomerang properly. As Jack mentioned earlier, everything flows seamlessly from Qgiv into Bloomerang, but you want to make sure you have that set up correctly. And if you're not sure how to do that, as Abby mentioned, we have a lot of great information that will help you make sure that everything is mapped. But that was a lot of wonderful information. We were just talking before the webinar started that you learn something new every day. And even though we've done so many webinars on online giving and year-end giving, there's always something new to learn, even for myself. So thank you, Abby, for all that great information.
Absolutely.
And yes, we have a question here. Everyone will get an email with a link to the recording and the slides. There's also information there to reach out directly to Qgiv if you have questions on the platform.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I know you wrapped it up nicely for us, Abby, but any other parting thoughts for our friends today?
The biggest thing I was just going to kind of encourage you all with, I know it's been a long year. I know it's been a hectic year. And if you're using Qgiv, if we can do anything to help you, please let us know. But otherwise, I just wanted to tell you that you're working very hard. I know it's about to get into a really wild time of year, but I wanted to reassure you that your donors love you and what you're fundraising for is important. And I would just encourage you to keep that in mind as you're raising money, but also to take care of yourself. I know especially at the end of the year, when fundraising campaigns are keeping you busy and you're probably working late, just take care of yourself. Your constituents appreciate you, we appreciate you, and I just want you to stay healthy and as stress-free as possible over the next few months.
Absolutely. We could all use that reminder. Thanks so much, Abby. Yeah. And thank you everyone for joining us today and spending part of your afternoon with us. We hope that this has been helpful for you. Again, if you need additional help after this, please feel free to reach out. We are always happy to talk to you and see how we can help. In the meantime, we hope you have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you in another Academy class soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.